In today's episode on the disappearance of 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro from Cabazon, California.
Yeah, I'm fired up about this. We had discovered over the weekend that the case scenario that we didn't want to have as an update became the reality here. Law enforcement believes that Emmanuel Haro, who's 7 months old, is deceased. That the parents have murdered their 7-month-old son.
Yeah, and on last Friday, August 22nd, Jake and Rebecca Haro were arrested and charged with murder after authorities stated they presumed that Emmanuel was dead.
All right, so this is a really, really tragic and unfortunate outcome, and we're going to get into it, but we got to break for a quick commercial, and we'll be right back with this continuing coverage on Emmanuel Haro.
Okay, welcome back to our coverage of this horrific story. And just to back it up a little bit, 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro was initially said to have gone missing on August 14th, 2025 from a Big Five sporting goods parking lot in Yucaipa, California. And Emmanuel's mom, Rebecca Haro, claimed she was attacked and her son was taken from her while she was laying unconscious on the ground in the parking lot. And questions arose immediately about the validity of the parents' story, and that coupled with Rebecca's black eye, it seemed like there was much more to this story. And we learned shortly after that authorities said that Rebecca had inconsistencies in her story of when Emmanuel went missing. And that's, not really usually the kind of thing that the police are going to say if they're not feeling like that's the direction of their investigation.
And then, of course, we have the news about Jake Haro, Emmanuel's father, and about how in 2023 he was convicted of criminal child cruelty stemming from incidents in 2018 where he abused his infant daughter, Emmanuel's sister, whose name is Promise. And the details about that abuse it's difficult to talk about. And even this story now today, it's just another chapter of a difficult story. Once that information was revealed, though, about Promise, it does seem like that's a pretty short walk for investigators in their moving forward with charges against Jake and Rebecca, murder charges against Jake and Rebecca for Emmanuel's death.
Right. And so we are recording this on Monday, August 25th, 2025. And as of today, the latest updates that we've seen were that Jake Haro, Emmanuel's father, was in an orange jumpsuit, and he was out there in Moreno Valley off of a freeway with law enforcement, seemingly looking for evidence, potentially evidence of Emmanuel, but there was no evidence discovered on Sunday. So that's pretty much where we are in the story as of now. We don't really know what the situation is with Jake and Rebecca at this point. At one point last week, it did seem like, in my opinion, Jake's lawyer was sort of putting the onus on Rebecca. So I do wonder if that ended up happening behind closed doors, that, their lawyers potentially are sort of pitting the parents against each other. I would think that would happen in this situation. I would think that they would have separate lawyers too, but I don't know those details as of today.
And Tim, you were talking about how it was incredibly satisfying to watch the video of Jake and Rebecca getting arrested. That was incredible. Like, that moment was incredible. And if it wasn't such a tragic outcome, there's like a lot of adrenaline that you can see, from law enforcement and from, just us covering it, like to see that moment where their gate is broken down and they have to like almost charge the property. If it wasn't such a terrible outcome, I would have been cheering, but why they're doing that, because the outcome is as tragic as it is. So just, yeah. What was going through your mind when you saw that?
Well, it struck me as a little bit of a dramatic way to
Yeah.
arrest them, but I think it was for emphasis, probably.
Yeah.
To show these parents, like, you are not going to get away with what you're accused of, murdering a 7-month-old child. Like, that is just downright dark and evil. And yeah, I mean, they probably could have just knocked on the door and the outcome would have been the same, but that wasn't the statement that they wanted to make.
No, absolutely not. They wanted to, and not to be redundant, but yes, they wanted to make a statement. They wanted to enter with an impact. I'm sure adrenaline was through the roof there.
Yeah. And it is also interesting to note that only Jake was seen out there searching for Emmanuel. So again, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I have my own opinions, and just kind of, in covering these stories, you kind of assume parents in this situation might turn against each other, or their lawyers would, sort of talk them into that at some point. So it was interesting to me to see Jake out there first. I would have expected Rebecca to have come clean, because as we had spoken about on our 2 previous episodes, this seemed like a potential domestic violence situation, that Jake was possibly threatening Rebecca or her other children's lives in this whole scenario. Also, it should be noted that I think at least one of their other children were taken away last week. So I don't think they were there to witness this. Maybe an older child was. I'm not sure about that detail, but at least one child was taken from their residence.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder if the child was taken away because they wanted to protect the child, or if they had the arrest like on the it was right around the corner, so they wanted to just get the kids out of there so they weren't witness to it. So I'm not entirely sure, but it's probably a combination of both.
And probably their own safety too. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
if this was a domestic situation, and at this point, we don't know if it was or not, but I think a lot of times that could lead to a family annihilator situation, where Jake would kill his kids and then Rebecca and then himself. Obviously that didn't happen, but
Yeah.
that was probably running through authorities' minds as a possibility.
Yeah, because they're just going through the different scenarios of what's going to happen once they break in. Once the door is like open for them to come in. Yeah, how has Jake been preparing himself for this moment and going in the way they went in? I'm sure that was part of the tactic, right? Go in as hard and fast as you can so that they don't really have time to execute any plan that they might have concocted in anticipation of this. But I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't put it past him at all. Like, this guy's already attempted to murder one of his other children and left that child, Promise, unable to walk, unable to see, unable to talk. I mean, just a shell of a human being that he left that person, that he left that little girl.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't put it past him to be ready for a complete annihilation of his family.
Right, especially because they had to know what was coming, right? They had to know that they were going to be arrested soon. It did look like they came in early in the morning, maybe. It almost looked like Jake was in his pajamas or something. But again, satisfying video to watch. I think the law enforcement were probably proud to be a part of that arrest, I would imagine.
Pretty swift too, so you got to hand it to him. I mean, the story had inconsistencies all over the place, and they were able to recognize that, and they were able to pretty quickly, however they did it, divide the couple so that they got the information they needed to make the arrest without the body. So somebody said, yes, definitely Emmanuel is dead. Without question, Emmanuel's dead. I don't know if it was Jake. I don't know if it was Rebecca, but one of them said it, and one of them said where they claim the body is. So they're out there looking, and Jake is helping. So I would imagine that it was Jake who said where the body is, unless Rebecca said, I don't know, and only Jake knows. But even if they go to Jake and say, you know where the body is, why would he take them there? Why would he play along?
It is interesting in that he was the only one, seen out there. Makes you wonder, who's cooperating more, and makes me wonder if Jake is telling the truth, because they did not find Emmanuel. So Is he leading them on a wild goose chase? And it should be noted that there's no reports of them being out there today searching on Monday, after he was out there seen on Sunday. So I wonder if authorities even believe the accounts of, where they believe Emmanuel might be or whatever, whoever said that.
Yeah. Looking at the pictures here, there's there's four in this picture. 4 law enforcement officers that I can see in this picture with him. He's in his prison orange jumpsuit, and makes me wonder what is going through their minds. Like, what's going through the police there? Like, you have to talk to this guy. You have to say, where is the body? Where is Emmanuel? Which direction are we going? Like, you have to converse with him. It must just turn their stomachs. I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could have a conversation without being a complete asshole to him.
Yeah. I agree with that. I can relate to that.
Like, how are you having a productive conversation?
Yeah. I mean, even covering this case in the way we do, it's kind of hard, to keep our opinions out of it and what we really feel about these people. So I wonder, it's almost like if you're law enforcement, you try to be nice and you're acting, you're pretending to be nice to this monster who, you're just trying to get this information out of. And then once it's out, you can be what you want to be towards him,
Yeah. And then you have to be so careful too, because he can use whatever, moment, whatever comment, whatever physical, not altercation, but physical interaction that he has with police, he can use that against them. So if you're one of those guys standing there with him, you have to restrain yourself, or else there's going to be this completely unnecessary proceeding or whatever that's going to be like, he's being mishandled or police abuse or something like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's going to be tough to be out there and not want to just leave the guy there and be like, I don't know. And I use air quotes by just leave him there.
All right. Well, we just wanted to let you know that we have launched a standalone podcast feed for our coverage of Emmanuel Haro, and I'm not sure how much longer it'll go, but we will certainly update the listeners of that podcast feed when there are updates to share. And I would imagine maybe Emmanuel could be found at some point this week, so that would be an update. So make sure you subscribe to that podcast feed.
So what happens if they find the body? I think these are the two avenues of or trains of thought that I have right now. What if they find the body? Then how are we proceeding? And then what if they don't find the body? How long is that going to go on for?
Well, I would imagine all this is sort of answered in the cooperation question, right? Like, who is cooperating? Who knows where Emmanuel is? And who is misleading, if anyone is misleading authorities, because charges will vary, in my opinion, as far as the answers of these questions go. We spoke about it last time that, if this was a situation where there was domestic abuse in the family, it was almost surprising that Rebecca didn't try to sort of break away and speak to authorities and, turn on Jake. She was going to have to at some point. Again, this is likely the scenario that's going to happen regardless of the timing. Mm-hmm. But so it makes me think there may not have been that domestic abuse situation in the house, because it doesn't seem like she did that. But
right.
I know that's a very complicated situation, so I don't know. I don't even really want to speculate on it any further at this point. But it doesn't seem like she was treated any different than he was, in their arrest and anything like that. So. Yeah, and again, weird to me that he's out there, claiming he knows where Emmanuel is, and Rebecca has not been seen out there searching. So, yeah, peculiar, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wonder if it's some tactic that his scumbag lawyer Vincent Hughes is trying to apply. Lead them around, lead them on a little bit of a wild goose chase. Don't directly indicate where the body is. Say it's in this area, walk around for a little while. That way we can buy some time to get, your case built. It's very difficult to charge people with murder when there's no body. So obviously this lawyer that he's had 2 times now for child abuse, when he abused his infant to the point of causing her not to be able to speak or walk or see. This is the second time that he's enlisted the help of this lawyer, and he was found guilty of that in 2018. So anyway, I'm just wondering, like, this guy Vincent Hughes knows Jake, it's been through the gauntlet before here with the child abuse thing, and he's probably thinking, hey, it's very difficult to charge anybody with a murder and no body. So we're going to string this out as long as we can.
That's interesting. I mean, if they're doing that, if that's their tactic, then, he's going to get a much worse punishment, I would say. I mean, and probably at this point, it might be hard to get any worse. But I think you're making good points about a no body homicide charge. That is a difficult case to prove. I think it's probably much easier in the scenario when you're talking about the victim being a 7-month-old who they know cannot live on his own out there. You know what I mean? So I think that's why they probably presumed Emmanuel dead so early in their investigation. If this was someone older, they probably would not have done that. Yeah,
that's a good point. And, this Vincent Hughes has appeared on news programs to talk about this case and to talk about Jake, and I would love to talk to him. I'd love it if he came on. I'd love it if there was some way that this gets back to him and he wants to come on. I really need to ask him, like, how do you do this? It's not like the guy was innocent of the last charge. He was guilty. He was found guilty. And instead of passing on this one, you took him as a client again. I mean, in what world is this not? I can't even finish my thought. It blows my mind.
I know, it's tough. He is he's getting free publicity, I guess, regardless of, what his situation is as far as being a good lawyer or not. I don't know. But, his name's out there in newspapers for better or worse at this point. So maybe it's good for him, for his business. I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, if he wanted to get his name out there, he should have dropped Jake as a client and then came out publicly and said, I defended him during the first charge. He was found guilty. I can't find it in my heart to do it again. I mean, that would bring him some clients. That would, go do the news cycle, like talk to news outlets about it and just say, that particular trial, changed me. But it didn't, because we're seeing him just behaving the way he's behaving now. And and you're obviously right. He's doing this so that he becomes known for these high-profile cases, and he's just trying to enhance his own business. Come on the show. Let's chat.
It would have been interesting to see him pull the move you're talking about and publicly proclaim that he was not going to defend Jake Haro. That would have been interesting and would have been a good move, I think, for the business as well. But clearly not what he did. That's not his ethics or whatnot. But maybe we'll reach out to him, see if we can get a comment.
That'd be amazing. God, I wish we just had another update. I wish we had a better update.
I know. So it doesn't look like Emmanuel will be found alive, but we will be back when there are updates in the search and in this story. Thank you very much for listening.